Hello, my name is Alan Clapp. I'm an engineer and I'm an artist, and I find that each helps the other. I get to use both sides of my brain. The very structured nature of engineering helps me with looking at relationships in my art. The think outside the box part of my art helps me with my investigations in the engineering world. Most of my artwork is with acrylics. And in many cases, I like to contrast transparent glazes with opaque acrylics. And today's subject is the glaze part of it. There are 6 things you need to consider when you're looking at using an acrylic glaze. What type of canvas substrate you're going to put the thing on, how you're going to dilute your color, what the undersurface between layers is going to be. If you have to have a hard edge and use tape to get that, how do you seal it? How do you choose your colors? And what type of brushes to use. As to the canvas, the choice of canvas is much the same as thinking about matte versus gloss medium. If you take something like a 7-ounce portrait canvas, very, very smooth because it has small threads that run through there, you're going to get a lot of color coming back at you at the same angle. You're going to get really bright colors. That's what I used over here. In fact, I prefer using the Yes canvas that Jerry sells. This is a pad, and I use these pieces for my experiments, and I do a lot of those. If you use the Yes canvas, portrait grade canvas, you're going to get great color reflections. However, if what you'd like to do is get a more diffused color, like in this particular piece, then use a heavyweight canvas, because the big threads, as they go over one another, create all these crevices that the color flows into, and you get an effect that's much like a watercolor type of situation. So choose your canvas substrate. That will tell you how much you're going to get in the way of reflected color coming back. And then you need to consider how to dilute the color. You can't do it just with water, or you're going to risk having the color come off. Because if you get more than 50% water, and you will have to dilute a lot of these glazes more than 50%, then it won't polymerize. So what you do is you use acrylic painting medium made for the purpose, very low viscosity. That's what you can dilute the colors with straight up. I use a 50-50 ratio with the acrylic painting medium and water, and my total recipe mixture that I make up in bottles and put lines on there so I never have to worry about the proportions in the future is 45% water, 45% acrylic painting medium, and 10% surface tension breaker, so that the glaze will lay down on the surface underneath and flow out evenly without streaks. The surface between layers is just as important as what you start with. What I've found is if you put down a layer of glaze, you have a semi-gloss or a glossy surface as a result. And if you go over that with a thin layer of matte medium, then you'll have a nice tooth that will allow the next glaze layer to lay down, flow out evenly without streaks. If you want the streaks, then go ahead and put one layer directly over the other. I did that in this painting for this area because I like the effect. It gives a little toothy, knobby effect to the color itself, like leaves that have a lot of surface to them, and it works well. So choose whether you want to have that effect or you want it to lay down. If you want it to lay down, use the matte underneath it. To seal the tape edges, use a matte medium as well, because that's going to give you the least contrast with the areas that you did not cover underneath that layer. The tape that I use is the white artist tape sold by Jerry's. I've looked at over 50 different kinds of tape, and these work the best for glazes in my opinion. You can also use the painter's tape, but only the delicate surface one. For most of the things that I do, I find that the white artist tape works better. The choice of colors is certainly one that has to do with what colors you simply want. And I use a lot of cheat sheets. I've got glazes that I have put on acetate sheets, and then I can put those up over the layer underneath and make sure that I've got the color combination that I want to have that comes all the way through. The colors I use are the Matisse Flow acrylics. They're liquid or fluid acrylics for two reasons. Great viscosity to start with, that is low viscosity, and so I don't have to dilute it that much to get it to flow out right. But secondly, they mill the pigments down fine enough that they're made actually to go through the finest airbrush nozzle that there is. I get incredible small light layers of glaze through there. I can actually make something that looks like smoke, and I can't do that with anything else. Finally, the brush. When you're putting on large areas of wash, you want a very delicate brush. I use two types of brushes for most of what I do. The Polar Flow brush sold by Jerry's, and then Jerry's own Creative Mark version of a wash brush, which is the Color Burst, and these work great. If you're talking about putting in specific levels of color, I tend to use the Pro Stroke brushes. If I'm going to use opaques, in many cases I will use the white bristle one, unless I'm going to want something that's a very clean, even layer or a very sharp line. In that case, I will use the Power Acryl version. You notice that the white bristle has the gray tip, and the red tip is the one that's the more like the watercolor brush, very springy, get a great line with it, and this is what I clean up the mess with if I ever have something run under a piece of tape. I'll see you later at my website, clappartstudios.com, CLAPPART studios.com. That's where I have this presentation instructions if you want to download those and get the formulas. See you at Jerry's Artorama at my next demo.